Hey, what's up? It's Leo from Tip of the Tongue Talks, and today I want to talk about something that's close to my heart, something that I feel passionate about, and that is how we learn languages. Okay, so let's look at the original way that we learn languages as a baby. Okay, we sort of start off like a sponge. Okay, we just kind of sit there, we do our thing, and we just kind of soak language up for a while, okay? And then eventually we'll say car or mum or whatever, right? Okay? So that's how we learn our own native language. And then what do we do? Okay? Then we go to school throughout high school, and then we do our A-levels and we study a language, right? Well, we get the option to anyway. And so that's 7 years of language learning. And what do we do in that time? Okay, we sit down, we shut up, and we read a grammar book. And we go through a course book. And then at the end of it all, you know, we get a grade, we get a letter to say how good we are. We get an A or a B or a C. And then supposedly we can speak another language. But in reality, this is not true, okay? I've spoke to so many people that have studied French and German and whatever for 7 years at school, and they got good grades, and they come out with an A or a B, and they cannot hold a conversation in the language that they have just spent 7 years learning, and supposedly they've mastered it because they've got an A. What the fuck is going on here? Okay, you do not know a language if you can't walk into a bar and just chat to some random people. Okay, just because you know the difference between the present perfect progressive and the past perfect progressive, it doesn't mean that you know the language. Okay, that just means that you have a technical understanding of it. It's not the same thing. Okay, I think this is a messed up approach, and I don't agree with it, okay? I think that yes, learning grammar is an important aspect of language learning. You've got to do it, okay? But I believe that we're placing way too much focus on it, and we need to go back to our roots and do what we originally did and just become a sponge and just soak the language up, rather than trying to cram as much grammar into our heads as we can in the shortest amount of time. We just embody the language instead. And how do we do this? How do we soak the language up instead? Well, the best way is through immersion. Okay, actually go to your country. I study Spanish. I go to Spain quite often. Okay, and when I'm there, I spend the majority of my time speaking Spanish, okay? I find native speakers and I practice with them. And that is infinitely better than any course book, than any class, than any book you can read at home, than any course you could ever do, because you'll be getting real life experience, okay? That's what's important, getting empirical, real life experience, rather than some abstract concepts in a classroom. You will never, ever truly, deeply understand a language if that's all you do. If all you do is just go into a classroom and study it. It's not about studying, it's about using. Okay? So, how do we do this? Okay? How do we actually learn by soaking in? Okay? I believe it's when we create an emotional connection to this thing that we don't understand. Okay? So we can create positive and emotional connections to words. Okay? So what I do is I take my passions and hobbies outside of language learning and I do them in my target language. I do them in Spanish. Okay? And this method is so good, okay? I recommend that every single person that's interested in language learning does this as well, okay? This is amazing. I can't believe that no one's tapped into this yet, or very few people have. Okay, so I love music, for example. I love lots of different types of music, okay? And I have about 10 Spanish bands that I listen to every single day. And what am I doing when I'm listening to them? Well, I'm just having fun, right? I'm not really studying, but I actually am, because what are the 4 areas of language learning, right? It's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. 2 active, 2 passive, okay? And when I'm listening to music, I'm listening to the sounds and the way the words are pronounced. I'm speaking, I'm singing along with it. Might not be singing very well, but I'm still working on my pronunciation. And I'm also reading. I'm reading the lyrics along with it. Okay, that's 3 out of the 4 language areas that I'm working just in one task, just in a 3 to 5 minute song. How awesome is that? Okay, and I've developed an emotional connection to it, because I'm like, yeah, that song's awesome, and I had fun, and I loved it. And I've also come out with all this knowledge because I've developed that emotional connection to it, okay? As opposed to it just being this abstract concept that I learned. So, for example, there's a Spanish word, esperanza. That means hope, okay? That's in the song, and I learned that within the first 2 or 3 months of learning Spanish. And I would not have ever remembered that if that was in a course book and I didn't develop that emotional connection with it that I did from that song. Okay? Another example of how we can create emotional connections to language and words is, I was in Spain about 1.5 years ago. I had only been studying Spanish for about 6 months at this point, so I was really bad, honestly. And I knew maybe about five different phrases. I could say like, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Leo. And quisiera una cerveza, por favor. Gracias. And that was about it. Okay? But I went out for 6 days in February, March. And for about 14 hours a day, I just met as many people as I could, and I just gained as much experience as I could. And it was incredible. Okay, yeah, it got awkward and there was some embarrassing moments. Like, for example, I was in a cafe a few days into my trip, and I was just making some small talk with a man. And I wanted to tell him that it was really sunny outside. Because I was quite surprised, because in England in February, March time, it's snowing and it's raining all the time and the weather's awful. But in Barcelona, it was sunny and beautiful. So I wanted to tell him that, just making small talk. And I said to him, I said, eres muy guapo. Okay? Because guapo, that means hot in Spanish. That means hot, right? Right? Kind of. It means hot as in sexy, as in attractive. So I wanted to say it's hot outside, but I was actually saying you're really hot. And he kind of blushed and kind of stuttered, and the conversation kind of ended about a minute after that. And you know, I was like, okay, this guy is kind of weird. That was quite strange. Why did that happen? And then about a minute after that conversation ended, I realized that guapo meant sexy. I was like, fuck, no. He must have thought I was coming on to him. That sucks, right? But, you know, I will never forget that experience. And it wasn't that traumatic. It's a funny story that I'm able to tell now. And I developed this kind of negative emotional connection with eres muy guapo. And hace muchísimo calor, which actually means the weather's nice and hot. So you see there, I would never have had a deep understanding of that just from reading a textbook and just from it being an anecdote in a class or whatever. Okay, I actually gained real life knowledge, an empirical knowledge of these two kind of areas of language. And I gained a deeper understanding of it really quickly. Okay, so you see how this is a much better approach to language learning than just trying to cram as much grammar into your head. It's like I said, it's useful and it's necessary at a certain point, but it shouldn't be your primary focus. Okay, you can read 100 books written by master chocolatiers on the taste of chocolate, right? But you will never truly know how chocolate tastes until you actually try it for yourself. Okay? So what I want you guys to do, I want you to put down the books. I want you to go out there, find some Spanish people if you study Spanish, or English people if you study English, and go and talk to them. It's going to be messy at first. It's going to be really awkward at first if you're not very good. But you will outlearn everyone so quickly that are just doing the mediocre things that most people do. Okay? And you're going to gain more confidence from it. You're going to become a more confident, strong, independent person through this pursuit of language learning. Okay, thank you.